I am Edward Monroe Jefferson, 76 years old and somehow still standing after a lifetime of labor most people will never understand. As a retired postal carrier who gave 35 years to the service, I thought I had earned rest. Instead, last December, I found myself at the Dallas Country Club Holiday Gala in a borrowed suit that pinched my shoulders and hung too long at the wrists. Around me, 200 executives in designer tuxedos raised crystal glasses filled with champagne I could never afford. My son Ronald stepped to the microphone, his voice smooth with the confidence of a man who had learned to own every room he entered. "Family means everything to me," he said, smiling at the crowd, "which is why I give my father $10,000 every month so he can live with dignity after all his years of sacrifice." The applause was immediate, warm, admiring. I stood there frozen. $10,000 a month. I work 80 hours a week at 76 years old. My 2008 Honda has a heater that died 2 winters ago. Last night I ate beans straight from the can. This morning my bank account showed $284.67. But what happened next made every face in that room turn pale. Before I retired, I carried mail for the United States Postal Service for 35 years. Rain, snow, heat. I walked those routes until my knees started giving out and my back told me it was time. I thought retirement meant rest. I thought I had earned it. Instead, at 76 years old, I work 3 jobs just to survive. 40 hours a week as a night security guard at an office complex downtown. Sit in a chair and watch cameras until my eyes burn. 30 hours cleaning warehouse floors, pushing a mop through buildings that smell like diesel and cardboard, working until 3 in the morning when most people are asleep. Another 10 hours behind the register at dollar stores scanning items for customers who look right through me like I am part of the machinery. 80 hours a week. My body aches in places I did not know could ache. My son Ronald built something different, real estate development. His office sits on the 40th floor of a glass tower with views of the whole city. He drives a car that costs what I used to make in 5 years. Lives in a penthouse in a neighborhood where security guards stop people who look like me and ask questions. His wife Lauren came from old Connecticut money, the kind of family that has been wealthy for so long they do not even think about it anymore. She manages their finances with spreadsheets and investment accounts I will never understand. Wears clothes that cost more than my monthly rent. I stood in that ballroom feeling like a prop in someone else's performance. A story Ronald told to make himself look generous. A convenient piece of his narrative about family values and taking care of those who came before. The dutiful son, the grateful father, except none of it was true. I needed air. The applause still rang in my ears as I stepped through the glass doors onto the terrace. December cold bit at my face, but it felt cleaner than the warmth inside that room full of lies. I pulled out my phone. The screen showed a notification from the electric company. Payment overdue. $73 I did not have until my security shift started at midnight. Footsteps clicked behind me. Heels on stone. I knew those heels. Lauren appeared beside me, champagne glass in her manicured hand. Her smile was perfect. Practiced. "Ronald worries about you, Edward. He talks about you constantly, how much he does for you. Sometimes I think he gives too much." I turned to look at her. "I have not received a penny." Her smile did not change. "Oh, Edward, at your age, memory plays such tricks. It must be confusing, all those financial arrangements. You should be grateful Ronald handles everything for you. He only wants what is best." "My memory works fine. My bank account tells me the truth." She stepped closer. The smile stayed, but her eyes went cold. "Family is everything, Edward. Everything. It would be such a shame if anything disrupted that. Ronald has worked so hard to build his reputation. People respect him. We would not want any confusion to damage what he has created. Misunderstandings can be so messy." The way she said it, the way she looked at me, like I was a problem to be managed. An old black man who should know his place, who should stay quiet and grateful. "Do you understand what I'm saying?" I understood perfectly. I left without another word, drove 40 minutes back to my neighborhood, the part of Dallas that does not make it into tourist brochures. My apartment building stood between a check-cashing place and a laundromat with half its neon lights burned out. $650 a month for 400 square feet. Inside, I sat at my small kitchen table. The chair wobbled. I opened my laptop, the screen flickering like it might die any day. Logged into my bank account. $284.67. Not 10,000. Not even 1,000. $284.67. I sat there staring at that number, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Something that felt like the moment right before you stop accepting lies and start demanding truth. Sleep did not come. I lay in bed staring at cracks in the ceiling, my mind replaying the same scenes over and over. Ronald's mother died when he was 8 years old. Cancer took her in 6 months. Left me with a boy who cried himself to sleep every night for a year. I worked double shifts at the post office. Took weekend jobs unloading trucks. Missed his school plays because I was delivering mail. Missed his basketball games because I was working a second shift just to keep the lights on. But I made sure he had what he needed. Made sure he could go to college. He was smart. Got a full scholarship to University of Texas. I was so proud I cried when that acceptance letter came. He stood in our tiny kitchen and promised me. Said when he made it big, he would take care of me. Said I would never have to work myself into the ground again. I believed him. Now here I was at 76 working 80 hours a week, while he stood in ballrooms telling strangers he gave me $10,000 a month. Using my name to build his reputation, using my sacrifice to make himself look generous, and his wife threatening me on a terrace, telling me to stay quiet, to be grateful, knowing I had been taught my whole life not to make waves, knowing that men like me, black men from my generation, had been trained to accept what we were given and not ask questions. I got up, walked to my kitchen table, opened my laptop, started typing. Not anger, just facts, dates, numbers, truth, because silence protects the wrong people. And I was done protecting them. Not anymore. The next morning, I walked into the Oak Cliff Public Library as soon as the doors opened at 9. The librarian recognized me. I came here often enough. Free internet, free heat in winter, a place to sit that did not cost anything. I took a computer station near the window and opened Google. My fingers moved slowly across the keyboard. Elder Financial Abuse, Texas. I hit enter. The first article made my stomach drop. It explained exactly what I suspected. When someone claims an elderly parent as a dependent on their taxes, they must provide more than half of that parent's financial support. The IRS requires proof, real proof, documentation, bank statements, receipts. If you claim the deduction without actually providing the support, that is fraud. Federal crime. I kept reading. The articles talked about how common it was. Adult children claiming elderly parents to reduce their tax burden, saving thousands of dollars every year, building reputations as generous family members, all while the actual parent lived in poverty. I searched another term, tax fraud claiming dependent. More results, criminal penalties, prison time, fines. Then I understood. Ronald was not just lying to his business associates, he was lying to the federal government, using my name on his tax returns, claiming he supported me, getting deductions, reducing what he owed, saving money while I worked 80 hours a week just to eat. This was not just betrayal, this was theft, and it was federal. That night I reported for my warehouse shift at 11. The building was 7 floors, housed multiple businesses. My job was cleaning common areas and hallways. By 2 in the morning, most offices were dark and empty. The 7th floor held a CPA firm, accounting professionals who helped wealthy people manage their money and taxes. I emptied their trash bins like I did every night, rolling my cart down the corridor. Something caught my eye in one of the recycling bins, a piece of paper with letterhead. I almost kept moving. It was not my business, but I saw my own name. I stopped, pulled the paper out, smoothed it against my cart. It was a draft letter. Red pen marks covered it with corrections and notes. The heading read, "Re-Tax Planning Strategy for Ronald Jefferson." My hands started shaking before I finished reading the first paragraph. As discussed, we have structured the dependent care arrangement for Edward Jefferson to maximize your tax benefit. The monthly support amount of $10,000 creates a substantial deduction while maintaining documentation standards required by IRS audit protocols. We recommend continuing the current structure through L. Bennett Holdings to maintain separation between personal and business accounting. I read it again, then a third time. L. Bennett Holdings. Lauren's maiden name was Bennett. I knew that much. She came from the Bennett family in Connecticut. Old money going back generations. This was not just Ronald. This was both of them. They had set up some kind of company using her family name, moving money through it, creating paperwork that said they were supporting me, building a trail for the IRS while I ate beans from a can. I pulled out my phone. The screen was cracked from when I dropped it last month, but it still worked. I took pictures, multiple angles, made sure every word was visible, the date, the letterhead, the signature line. Then I dug deeper in the recycling bin, found more pages, more drafts, more letters discussing the arrangement. I photographed everything. By the time I finished, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I put everything back exactly as I found it, finished my shift on autopilot. This was not just a lie told at a party. This was systematic, planned, documented. This was fraud. I went straight from the warehouse to my morning shift at dollar store. My body felt like it was moving through mud, but I clocked in at 8 and took my place at the register. Denise worked the shift with me. She was 65, a black woman with silver hair she kept short and reading glasses that hung on a chain around her neck. We had worked together for 2 years. She used to be a bookkeeper before her company downsized and let go of everyone over 60. During our break, I showed her the photos on my phone. She put on her glasses and studied each image carefully, scrolled slowly through them. Her expression changed. "That's fraud, Eddie," she said quietly. "That right there is tax fraud. If your son is claiming you as a dependent and documenting support he never gave you, that's an IRS violation, federal crime." "You're sure?" "I worked in accounting for 30 years, I'm sure." She handed my phone back. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know. I need more than this, don't I? More proof. You need everything documented. Bank statements showing you never received money. Pay stubs from all 3 of your jobs proving you support yourself. Rent receipts, utility bills. Anything that shows the truth about how you actually live. And you need to find out if there's more. If they set up that Bennett Holdings thing, there might be other documents. Bank accounts. More letters." She looked at me over her glasses. Her voice was gentle but firm. "Eddie, this is serious. This isn't just family drama. This is your son using your name to commit federal crimes. If you get more documents, more proof, I can help you understand what the numbers mean." "You do that. Baby, you bring me what you find, I'll tell you exactly what it means." I waited until evening to make the call. Sat at my kitchen table with my phone and a small voice recorder I had bought at dollar store during my shift. $20, worth every penny. I had researched it at the library. Texas is a one-party consent state. As long as I am part of the conversation, I can legally record it. I hit record on both devices and dialed Ronald's number. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Dad, everything okay? I need to ask you something. At the party, you told everyone you give me $10,000 a month." Silence stretched for 3 seconds. Then, "Dad, it's complicated. There are trust structures involved, tax planning, financial instruments. You wouldn't understand the finance side of things. I understand my bank account has $284 in it. You're not looking at the whole picture. The money is set aside for you. It's being managed properly for your long-term benefit. There are accounts you don't see." "What accounts? Where? Show me." His voice changed. Got that edge I remembered from when he was a teenager caught in a lie. "Dad, I think you're getting confused. This happens at your age. Memory issues are completely normal. Maybe we should talk about getting you some help. Have you thought about memory care assisted living, somewhere with staff who can help you keep track of these things?" My hand tightened on the phone. "My memory works fine, Ronald. I remember every bill I pay, every shift I work, every can of beans I eat for dinner because that's all I can afford. You're working yourself up over nothing. I handle your finances. I take care of everything. You should be grateful instead of calling me with accusations." I heard a voice in the background, Lauren. I could not make out the words, but the tone was clear, sharp, commanding. Ronald covered the phone, muffled conversation. When he came back, his voice was harder. "Dad, I have to go. We'll talk about this later, and seriously think about that doctor's appointment." The line went dead. I sat there with the phone in my hand, the recorder still running, capturing nothing but silence and my own breathing. The next morning, I called George Patterson. We had known each other for 15 years, ever since we both started attending the same church. He was a lawyer who did family law and elder cases. A good man. Honest. "George, it's Eddie Jefferson. I need to talk to you about something serious." "Of course, what's going on?" I told him everything, the party, the recording, the letter I found at the warehouse. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, the line was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Eddie, this is serious. What you're describing is elder financial abuse combined with tax fraud. If your son is claiming you as a dependent and documenting support that never reached you, that could be federal charges. When can you come see me? Today, if you can. Come to my office at 2. At his office that afternoon, I showed him everything on my phone. The photos of the CPA letter, the recording of Ronald's call, my bank statements showing months of balances under $500. George's expression changed as he looked through each piece of evidence. When he finished, he looked up at me. "Eddie, this is good, but we need more. Much more. We need to build a complete picture before we take this anywhere." George told me I needed evidence from inside Ronald's house. Real documents. Proof beyond a letter from a trash bin. I knew Lauren had yoga class every Tuesday at 10 in the morning. She posted about it on social media. Pictures of herself in expensive workout clothes with captions about wellness and self-care. Tuesday morning, I drove to their neighborhood. Willow Creek Estates, iron gates, guardhouse, lawns that looked like pudding greens. The security guard stepped out of his booth as I pulled up. Young white man with mirrored sunglasses. He leaned down to my window, his hand resting near his belt. "Can I help you, sir?" The way he said "sir" made it clear he thought I did not belong. I kept my hands visible on the steering wheel. "I'm visiting my son, Ronald Jefferson. Name, Edward Jefferson." He looked at his clipboard, then at me, then back at the clipboard, taking his time. "ID." I handed him my driver's license through the window. Same last name as Ronald. Same address listed as next of kin in their system. He studied it longer than necessary. "He expecting you. I'm his father. I visit when I can." He finally waved me through, but I saw him pick up his phone as I drove past. Ronald's house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, Mediterranean-style, 3-car garage, fountain in the front yard. I parked on the street and walked to the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. Rosa answered, the housekeeper. Latina woman, maybe 50 years old with kind eyes. I had met her once before at a holiday dinner. "Mr. Edward, Mr. Ronald is at work." "I know. I was hoping to wait in his office, maybe leave him a note." She hesitated, glanced back into the house. "Okay, you know where it is." "I remember. Thank you, Rosa." Ronald's office was on the second floor. Heavy wooden desk, leather chair, filing cabinets. I closed the door behind me and went straight to the desk. The checkbook sat in the top drawer. I opened it and started photographing. Page after page, monthly checks for $10,000 made out to L. Bennett Holdings LLC, going back years. A folder labeled tax documents sat in the filing cabinet, inside a spreadsheet. Column headers, date, amount, purpose. Row after row, EJ support, $10,000 monthly, but no indication the money ever reached me. Another letter from the CPA firm, praising Ronald's planning, discussing the dependent care arrangement and how it provided excellent tax efficiency. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone. I took photos of everything, every check, every page of the spreadsheet, every letter. My phone buzzed. Text from Rosa, Mrs. Lauren called, "Coming home early, 5 minutes." My stomach dropped. I shoved everything back exactly as I found it, closed drawers, straightened papers, rushed out of the office and down the stairs. Rosa met me at the door. "Go, quick." I made it to my car just as a white Mercedes turned onto the street. I parked 3 blocks away, hands still shaking. Sat in my car trying to calm my breathing when I saw Rosa walking down the sidewalk. She carried a trash bag, but her eyes were searching. She spotted my car and walked over. I rolled down the window. She glanced back toward the house, then leaned in close. "Mr. Edward, I have seen things. Things that bother me for a long time." "What things?" "Every month Mrs. Lauren writes checks. $10,000 to her company. She puts them in a folder with your name on it, but I never see her give you anything. Never see you come get money. One time I asked her about it. She told me it was none of my business and to focus on my cleaning." Rosa's voice dropped lower. "She tells Mr. Ronald what to do. Everything. The business, the money, all of it. He is scared of her, I think. When they fight, she reminds him about her family, about their connections, about what they can do for him or against him." "Have you seen any other documents, letters, bank statements?" She nodded. "In the office, there is a whole file, tax papers, bank statements for the Bennett Holdings account. I clean that office 3 times a week. I see things even when I am not supposed to look." Rosa looked me in the eyes. She treats me like I am invisible, Mr. Edward, like I am furniture that cleans and cooks but does not see or hear. I think she treats you the same way, like we do not matter because we are not rich, not white, not important enough to worry about. Rosa, if this goes further, if I need to prove what they did, would you be willing to tell someone what you've seen? Write it down. She was quiet for a long moment. Fear crossed her face. I need this job. I send money to my mother in Mexico. My daughter is in college, but what they are doing is wrong. If you need me to speak the truth, I will speak it. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. I made a copy last week. Something told me I should. This is a bank statement for Bennett Holdings. She pressed it into my hand. Be careful, Mr. Edward. Mrs. Lauren does not like when people ask questions. George gave me the name of Patricia Holmes, elder law specialist. He said she was the best in Dallas for cases like mine. Her office was in a small building near the courthouse. No fancy lobby, just a reception area with practical furniture and legal magazines on a coffee table. Patricia was a black woman in her mid-40s with natural hair pulled back in a bun and reading glasses on a chain. She shook my hand firmly and gestured to a chair across from her desk. George told me a little about your situation. Show me what you have. I opened my phone and walked her through everything. The photos from the warehouse, the checkbook from Ronald's office, the recording of our phone call, the bank statement Rosa had given me. She made notes as I talked, stopping me occasionally to ask questions. When I finished, she sat back and studied her notes for a long moment. This is strong, Mr. Jefferson. Very strong. What you're describing involves at least 3 crimes. Elder financial abuse under Texas law, federal tax fraud for false dependent claims, and potentially identity theft if they forged any documents with your signature. I never signed anything. No trust documents, no transfer authorizations, nothing. She looked up sharply. Never. You're absolutely certain. I would remember signing something like that. Then we need to find out if your signature exists somewhere anyway, because if they're running money through accounts and claiming it's for your care, there should be paperwork, bank forms, account applications, something with a signature on it. She made more notes. Here's what we do next. First, I send preservation letters to every financial institution that might be involved. Banks, investment firms, the CPA firm. Legal notice that they cannot destroy any records related to you. Second, we document everything you can remember. Dates, conversations, amounts. Third, we prepare to meet with the district attorney. The DA, you think this goes that far? Mr. Jefferson, your son and daughter-in-law have been committing fraud for years, using your identity, stealing from the federal government. This absolutely goes that far. She leaned forward. But I need to ask you something difficult. Are you ready for what comes next? This will be ugly. This will destroy your relationship with your son. Are you prepared for that? I thought about 80-hour weeks at 76 years old, about beans from a can and threats on terraces. I've worked 80 hours a week at 76 just to survive. I'm ready. That night I came home from my security shift at 6 in the morning. An envelope lay on the floor just inside my apartment door. Plain white. No stamp, no return address. Someone had slipped it under the door while I was working. I picked it up carefully and opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. Stop. You don't understand what you're risking. Family matters stay private. This benefits no one. Walk away while you still can. No signature, nothing to identify who sent it. But I knew. The timing was too perfect. The day after I visited Ronald's house. The day after I took those photos. I checked my phone. 6:15 in the morning. I went to my kitchen drawer and pulled out a plastic sandwich bag, slid the envelope and letter inside without touching them more than necessary, wrote the date and time on a piece of masking tape and stuck it to the bag. Then I called Patricia. She answered on the second ring, her voice alert despite the early hour. They left a threat under my door. Read it to me. I did. She was quiet for a moment after I finished. Mr. Jefferson, this is witness intimidation. Technically, it's also evidence that helps our case. It shows consciousness of guilt. People don't threaten you to stay quiet unless they know they've done something wrong. Photograph the envelope, the letter, everything. Note exactly when and where you found it. Keep it in that plastic bag. Should I be worried? Should I be scared? Be aware of your surroundings, but don't let them scare you into silence. That's exactly what they want. We're going to move faster now. I'll have those preservation letters out by this afternoon. After I hung up, I sat at my table looking at that envelope in its plastic sleeve. Someone thought they could frighten an old man into giving up. They were wrong. I could not sleep. My mind kept replaying everything. The threats, the evidence, the years of lies. At 2 a.m, I got up and opened my laptop. I created an account on Medium, anonymous. No real name, no photo, just a blank profile. I titled the post, The Invisible Father. I wrote about a 76-year-old man who worked 80 hours a week across 3 jobs. About a son who stood in front of wealthy people and claimed he gave his father $10,000 every month. About eating beans from a can and driving a car with a broken heater while that same son lived in a mansion. About discovering it was all a lie, a performance, a way to look generous and save on taxes. I did not use names. I did not need to. The details told the story. I hit publish at 3:27 in the morning and went to bed. When I woke up at noon, my phone was buzzing with notifications. The post had been shared 600 times. The comment section was filling up fast. My daughter and her husband do this. They tell everyone they support me. I live on Social Security and food stamps. My son claims me on his taxes every year. I never see a penny. I thought that was just how it worked. This happened to my father. We only found out after he died when we saw the tax returns. He lived in poverty while my brother claimed thousands in deductions. Most of the comments came from elderly Black Americans, people who had been taught not to make waves, not to question their children, not to cause problems for family who had made it. Then one comment stopped me cold. This sounds exactly like Lauren Ashford from Connecticut. She scammed my father in Houston 10 years ago. Different scheme but same pattern. Took $95,000 from his restaurant business. Said she was a financial consultant. When he asked for an accounting, she disappeared. We never pressed charges because he was too embarrassed. If this is the same woman and she married into Dallas real estate, your son's name might be Ronald. I screenshot the comment immediately and texted it to Patricia with a single message. There's another victim. She called me 5 minutes later. This changes everything. We're not just dealing with one family's fraud. We're dealing with a predator. My phone rang at 7 a.m. Ronald. I let it ring twice before answering, my finger already on the record button. Dad, what the hell did you do? Good morning, Ronald. Don't good morning me. People are sending me links to some blog post about a father working 80 hours a week while his son claims to support him. Is that you? Did you write that? Is it true or not? That's not the point. You're embarrassing me. My investors are asking questions. My business partners want to know if I'm the son in that story. Do you have any idea what this could do to my reputation? To my business? I stayed quiet. Let him talk. I've worked for years to build credibility in this city. Years. And you're going to destroy it with some anonymous blog post because you're confused about financial arrangements you don't understand. I understand. I work 80 hours a week at 76. I understand my bank account has $284. I understand the difference between what you tell people and what's actually true. His voice dropped, got colder. Dad, if you keep this up, I'm going to have no choice. I'll have to get a doctor to evaluate your capacity. Have you declared mentally incompetent? For your own protection, of course. Someone who's making wild accusations like this, posting things online, clearly isn't thinking straight. A judge would understand that. Capacity, the legal term for stripping someone of their right to make decisions, to control their own money, their own life. I'm entirely capable, Ronald. My mind works fine, and I'm done being your cover story. I'm done being the prop you use to look like a good son while I work myself into the ground. You're making a huge mistake. The only mistake I made was staying silent for so long. I hung up, saved the recording, added it to the folder that was growing thicker every day. My phone buzzed immediately. Text from an unknown number. This isn't over. I screenshot that too. The email came 2 days after my blog post went viral. The subject line read, I know who your daughter-in-law is. The sender was Lawrence Crawford, 70 years old, retired school teacher who had opened a soul food restaurant in Houston with his retirement savings. Mr. Jefferson, I read your blog post and I believe I know the woman involved. In 2012, a financial consultant named Lauren Ashford approached me about my restaurant. She said she could help me expand, manage my money better, increase profits. She had credentials. References came from a wealthy Connecticut family with impressive connections. I trusted her. I gave her access to my business accounts. She convinced me to invest $95,000 in her management company for what she called strategic financial restructuring. She said it would triple my money in 2 years. 6 months later, when I asked for an accounting of where my money had gone, she stopped returning my calls. The management company was nothing but a shell corporation. The business address was just a mailbox service. My $95,000 was gone. I never pressed charges. I was ashamed, Mr. Jefferson. A successful 60-year-old black man who had taught high school business classes for 30 years, scammed by a young white woman with a pretty smile and fancy words. I thought people would say I should have known better, that I was foolish, that I deserved it. But I've lived with that shame for 10 years. When I saw your post and the comments from other people, I realized shame is exactly what keeps this happening. If your daughter-in-law is Lauren Ashford from Connecticut and she married a Dallas real estate developer, then she's still doing it. She just found a new system, a new victim. I'm willing to talk to authorities, to testify, whatever you need. I forwarded the email to Patricia immediately. She called within minutes. Eddie, this establishes a pattern. Lauren's not just complicit in your son's scheme. She brought the expertise. We need to move fast. Patricia moved quickly. By that afternoon, legal notices went out to every institution that might have records. To Ronald's real estate development company, preserve all financial records, tax documents, and correspondence related to Edward Jefferson or any dependent support arrangements. To Bank of America, Chase Wells Fargo, and 3 regional banks. Preserve all account records, signature cards, and transaction histories for any accounts connected to Edward Jefferson, Ronald Jefferson, Lauren Jefferson, or L. Bennett Holdings. To the CPA firm whose letter I found in the trash, preserve all communications, tax filings, and planning documents related to the Jefferson family. To the registered address of Bennett Holdings, legal notice that all records must be maintained pending investigation. Each letter carried the same warning. Destruction of records during a legal investigation constitutes obstruction of justice. Federal crime. Patricia called me that evening. Ronald's attorney already responded, called it harassment, said we're engaging in a fishing expedition based on an elderly man's confusion and wild accusations. What did you say? I told him we have documentary evidence, recorded conversations, witness testimony, photographs of checks and internal communications. I told him we're prepared to take everything to the district attorney's office. I told him if he thinks preservation letters are harassment, he should wait until the subpoenas start arriving. And he hung up on me, which tells me they're very worried. My phone buzzed. Text from Ronald, Dad, please. Let's talk before this gets worse. We can work this out. I showed Patricia the message. Don't respond, she said. Everything from now on goes through me. 3 weeks later, an invitation arrived in my mailbox. Ronald was hosting another investor dinner. Smaller this time, 50 people instead of 200. The note was handwritten on expensive stationery. Dad, I know things have been strained between us. Please come to this dinner. Let's show everyone we're still family. We can work through our misunderstandings together. Lauren probably thought I would not show up, that shame would keep me away, that an old man would not dare confront his son in public twice. She was wrong. I arrived early, wore the same borrowed suit, the sleeves still hung too long. I took a seat near the back, close to the kitchen doors where servers moved in and out. Mostly Black and Latino workers, people who understood what 80-hour weeks felt like. Ronald gave his speech, talked about integrity in business, about the importance of family values, about building a legacy of responsibility and care for those who came before us. He did not mention $10,000 this time, did not mention me by name, just spoke in vague terms about family obligations and generational responsibility. I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor. The room went quiet. Excuse me, may I say something? Ronald's face went pale. Dad, this really isn't the appropriate time. I think it is. You just spoke about taking care of family. I'd like to clarify exactly what that looks like. I looked at the servers standing against the wall. First, I want to thank the people working tonight. Maria, Carlos, Keisha, Marcus. You're here working so folks like us can enjoy a meal. I see you. I know what that labor costs because I do it too. Then I turned to face the investors and business partners filling the room. My name is Edward Jefferson. I'm Ronald's father. I'm 76 years old. I work 80 hours a week, 40 hours as a security guard, 30 hours cleaning warehouse floors, 10 hours at a dollar store register. Whispers started. Someone near the front shifted in their seat. 6 months ago, at a party much like this one, my son stood in front of 200 people and told them he gives me $10,000 every month, that he supports me, that he takes care of me in my old age. Ronald stood. Dad, please stop. I drive a 2008 Honda Civic with 240,000 miles on it. The heater hasn't worked in 2 years. Last week I ate beans from a can for dinner 4 nights in a row because that's what I could afford. This morning my bank account had $312 in it. An older black woman in the front row leaned forward. Her voice cut through the murmurs. Ronald, is this true? It's complicated. My father doesn't understand the financial structures we've put in place. I understand. I have photographs, I said. Monthly checks for $10,000. Every single one made out to L. Bennett Holdings, my daughter-in-law's company. Not a single penny has ever reached me. The room erupted, voices overlapping. Someone said they had read about this online. Someone else was already pulling out their phone. Lauren stood up, her face rigid. This is completely inappropriate. He's confused. He doesn't understand how trusts and estate planning work. I looked directly at her, kept my voice calm. Ma'am, I may be 76 years old, but confusion and theft are very different things. I invite anyone in this room who believes I've received $10,000 a month to meet me at my bank tomorrow morning. We can look at the statements together. We can see exactly where that money went. A man in the back raised his phone. I saw the red light. Recording. You're embarrassing yourself, Ronald said, his voice shaking. No, I'm telling the truth. Finally. An investor stood up. Then another. A woman approached me. Mr. Jefferson, I'd like to talk with you after this. I have questions about my own elderly parents' finances. Another man handed me his card. I'm a criminal defense attorney. If you need representation, call me. No charge. Ronald and Lauren left through the side door, fast, not looking back, not saying goodbye to anyone. 3 more people came up to me afterward, offered help, shared their own stories. An accountant said he had suspected this kind of fraud in other families. A man my age with gray hair said his daughter did something similar. I thought I was the only one, he said quietly. You're not, I told him. None of us are. The video exploded overnight. By morning, 80,000 views. By noon, 150,000. The Dallas Morning News ran it as their lead story. Elderly father confronts son over alleged financial abuse at investor dinner. Local TV stations picked it up for their evening broadcasts. The video clip played on loop, my face, my words, Ronald's pale expression as he left. But it was the comment sections that told a more complicated story. Notice the pattern here. White daughter-in-law, black father-in-law. She takes over the finances and suddenly the black family members get erased. This is what happens in interracial marriages when old money meets new money. The white spouse brings connections and the black family becomes disposable. My uncle married a white woman from a wealthy family. Within 5 years, his mother was in a state-funded nursing home and nobody could visit without the wife's permission. I'm seeing a pattern, but others push back hard. This isn't about race. It's about greed. Plenty of same-race families do this to elderly parents. My white mother-in-law stole from my white husband's grandmother for years. Can we focus on the actual crime here instead of making everything about race? An elderly man is being robbed. That's what matters. I'm white, and my son's white wife did exactly this to my father. Financial abuse doesn't have a skin color. The discussion spiraled in dozens of directions. Some people saw racial dynamics. Others saw pure greed. Everyone had an opinion. My phone would not stop ringing. Reporters from local stations, producers from cable news shows, a podcast about financial crimes, someone from a documentary series. Patricia told me to decline everything. We don't try this case in the media. We build the evidence and take it to the district attorney. Once charges are filed, then you can speak publicly if you want, not before. But the emails kept coming. One caught my attention. Mr. Jefferson, my name is Dorothy Chen. I live in San Antonio. My father is black. My stepmother is white from a wealthy Connecticut family. She married my father 5 years ago. Within 2 years, his accounts were empty. She claims she's managing everything for his benefit. He has nothing. We only discovered it when he had a stroke and we tried to pay his medical bills. Everything was gone, transferred to her family trust. His name is on tax documents claiming he receives support. He lives on Social Security. I'm scared to confront her. My father is afraid. But your story gave me hope. Can you help? I forwarded it to Patricia. She called immediately. Eddie, how many more people are living this right now? How many are too scared to speak up? My blog post had grown to 2,000 comments, people sharing stories, asking questions, forming connections. Someone started a Facebook group, Elder Financial Abuse Survivors. Within a week, 300 members. A support group was forming, built on the foundation of one old man who refused to stay silent. The knock came at 6:17 in the morning, hard, official, the kind of knock that wakes you from sleep with your heart already racing. I opened the door to find two federal agents in dark suits, badges clipped to their belts. Mr. Edward Jefferson. Yes. We're executing search warrants this morning. Not here at your residence. At your son's office and home. We wanted to inform you as a courtesy since you're the complainant in this matter. My mouth went dry. When? Right now. Teams are at both locations as we speak. We also have subpoenas for bank records from multiple institutions. This investigation is moving forward, sir. After they left, I sat at my kitchen table, hands shaking, phone silent, waiting. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Text from Rosa. They are here. Many people in uniforms. Taking boxes from Mr. Ronald's office. Mrs. Lauren is very angry. They told me I do not have to speak now. They gave me a card with a number. I texted back, "Are you safe?" Her reply came quickly. Yes, they are professional. Polite. By 9 o'clock, my phone started ringing. George, Patricia, Denise from Dollar Store asking if I had seen the news. I turned on the TV. Channel 5 had a camera crew outside Ronald's office building. The banner across the bottom read, "Federal agents execute search warrant at Jefferson Development." A reporter stood on the sidewalk. Sources tell us this is related to allegations of elder financial abuse and tax fraud. Federal agents have been inside for over 2 hours, removing boxes of financial documents and computer equipment. The video showed agents in FBI windbreakers carrying file boxes to unmarked vehicles. Ronald stood in the background with his lawyer, both watching. Ronald's face looked hollow. By noon, his lawyer had released a statement to the press. This is prosecutorial overreach and government harassment of a successful businessman. My client has cooperated fully with all inquiries and maintains his complete innocence. These allegations stem from family misunderstandings being exploited by overzealous investigators seeking publicity, Patricia called. Don't respond to anything. Don't talk to reporters. Let them spin whatever story they want. The evidence speaks for itself. What happens now? Now forensic accountants go through everything they seized. They build an airtight case. Then we go to the grand jury. I spent the rest of the day at work, stocking shelves, acting normal. But every customer who came through my line, I wondered if they had seen the news, if they knew who I was. Patricia called 3 days after the search warrants were executed. Her voice carried an edge I had not heard before, excitement mixed with anger. Eddie, they found it, the smoking gun. Found what? Your signature. On a bank authorization form dated March 15, 2019, it establishes an automatic transfer system from an account titled EJ Care Trust to Bennett Holdings, $10,000 monthly. Your signature is right there at the bottom, authorizing everything. My chest tightened. I never signed that. I've never even seen that form. I know, because it's a forgery, and we can prove it. She explained what the forensic investigators had discovered. The document had my signature at the bottom. Edward Jefferson in handwriting that looked similar to mine. But when analysts compared it to my real signatures on dozens of other documents, they found a critical difference. You lift your pen when you write the last letter of Jefferson, the N. You always do it. It's consistent across every legitimate signature we have from you going back 20 years. Driver's license renewals, postal service documents, bank account openings, every single one shows that pen lift. And the forged one doesn't. Exactly. Whoever copied your signature didn't know about that habit. They wrote it as one continuous motion. How do you know I didn't just sign it differently that one time? Because of the bank surveillance video, the form was supposedly signed at a Bank of America branch on March 15, 2019 at 2:47 in the afternoon. Security cameras show a woman entering the bank with a man at 2:35. They're escorted to a private signing room. 12 minutes later, they exit with a folder. Lauren. Yes, and the man with her has been identified as Marcus Webb. He's an unlicensed notary with a prior conviction for fraud. The notary stamp on your authorization form, it belongs to him." Patricia paused. "And Eddie, we pulled your employment records. You were working your warehouse shift that day, clocked in at 2:30 p.m., 15 miles away from that bank. You physically could not have been in both places." I sat down. My legs would not hold me anymore. This isn't just tax fraud anymore. This is identity theft, forgery. These are serious federal crimes with serious prison time. What about Ronald? Does he know what she did? The emails we recovered suggest he knew exactly what was happening. There are messages between them discussing the signature, when to get it done, which branch to use. Over the next week, the fallout accelerated. 3 of Ronald's major investors pulled their funding. 2 business partners publicly distanced themselves from Jefferson Development. The Dallas Business Journal ran a story, "Developer Faces Federal Investigation Investor Exodus." Ronald's empire was crumbling, and all of it built on my forged name. The Dallas County District Attorney's Office sat downtown in a building that made my apartment look like a storage closet. Security checkpoints, metal detectors, people in suits moving with purpose. Patricia met me in the lobby. "Jennifer Santos is tough. She built her career prosecuting white-collar crime and financial fraud. She doesn't lose often. Just tell her the truth." Jennifer's office was smaller than I expected, organized, no clutter. She stood when we entered. Latina woman, early 40s, dark hair pulled back tight. Her handshake was firm. "Mr. Jefferson, thank you for coming." She gestured to chairs across from her desk. "I've reviewed everything your attorney provided. Let me walk you through what we have." She opened a thick folder. "The forged signature with bank video showing your daughter-in-law, not you. The surveillance footage time-stamped while you were working 15 miles away. Monthly checks totaling $480,000 to Bennett Holdings. Tax returns claiming you as a dependent. Recorded phone calls where your son suggests you're mentally confused." She pulled out a printed email. "We also found this in the documents seized from the office, from Lauren to Ronald, dated 2 years ago." She slid it across the desk. I read it. "Your dad is finally useful for something. Just keep the story consistent and keep him quiet. Old black men from his generation don't question white authority. We're completely safe." The words felt like a physical blow. Jennifer let me sit with it for a moment. Then she continued. "What we're looking at here is elder financial abuse under Texas law. Federal tax fraud for false dependent claims. Identity theft for the forged signature. Wire fraud for electronic transfers of stolen funds, and conspiracy because they planned it together over multiple years. How much prison time are we talking about? If convicted on all counts, your son could face 15 to 20 years. Lauren potentially more because of the Houston victim and the established pattern of predatory behavior." She leaned forward. "But before we proceed, I need to ask you something. What do you want from this process?" I thought about Rosa risking her job, Lawrence Crawford carrying shame for 10 years, all the people who had written to me saying they thought they were alone. I want the truth on record, not just for me, for everyone this has happened to, every parent whose child used them, every elderly person told they're confused when they're being robbed. Jennifer nodded slowly. "Then let's get it on record. Grand jury convenes in 2 weeks." I was not allowed inside the grand jury room. Patricia explained that prosecutors present evidence without the defense present. No cross-examination, just witnesses and documents building a case piece by piece. I waited in a conference room down the hall with George. We drank bad coffee from a vending machine and watched the clock. Hours passed. My phone stayed silent. The first witness was a vice president from Bank of America. He testified there was no record of Edward Jefferson ever visiting the branch where the authorization form was supposedly signed. No appointment scheduled, no sign-in sheet, no visitor log entry, nothing. Then they played the surveillance video, showed Lauren and Marcus Webb entering at 2:35, showed them going into the private signing room, showed them exiting 12 minutes later with a folder. Then they introduced my warehouse time card, clocked in at 2:30 p.m. March 15th, 2019, 15 miles from that bank. Physically impossible to be in both places. Rosa testified next. Patricia had spent hours preparing her, making sure she focused on facts rather than feelings, making sure her statement was clear and unshakable. She described 3 years of watching Lauren write monthly checks to Bennett Holdings, filing them in folders marked with my name but mailing them to a post office box. She described overhearing arguments between Ronald and Lauren about keeping me quiet until after tax season. Then she quoted Lauren directly, words Rosa had written in her personal diary the night she heard them. "Old black men don't make waves. Society taught them not to question white people in authority. We're safe as long as he stays quiet." The grand jury foreman later told Jennifer that the room went completely still after Rosa said those words. Several jurors leaned forward. One wrote furiously in her notepad. Rosa's voice broke when she talked about needing her job, about being afraid but knowing this was wrong. She cried on the stand. Jennifer let her take her time. When Rosa finished, she had her diary with her. Dated entries from 2 years ago. Contemporaneous documentation. Exactly what prosecutors needed. Lawrence Crawford flew in from Houston. 70 years old now. Gray hair, steady voice despite obvious nervousness. He told his story. How Lauren had approached him in 2012 as a financial consultant. Her credentials, her promises, the $95,000 that disappeared. How he had been too ashamed to report it. "Why ashamed?" Jennifer asked. "Because I'm a black man who taught business classes for 30 years, and a young white woman with a smile took everything I had. People would have said I should have known better, that I was foolish, that I deserved it." The pattern was established. Lauren had done this before, would have kept doing it. The forensic accountant walked the grand jury through the money trail, $480,000 over 4 years. From Ronald's company to Bennett Holdings to Lauren's personal accounts, cash withdrawals, luxury purchases, travel, $0 to me. The CPA who wrote the original letters was the final witness. He had been granted immunity in exchange for testimony. His hands shook as he admitted that Ronald and Lauren had specifically asked him to create support documentation for tax purposes, that he had felt uncomfortable but complied because they were major clients. After 6 hours of testimony, the grand jury deliberated. Patricia's phone rang in the hallway. She listened, nodded, then looked at me. Indicted on all counts, both of them. By evening, arrest warrants had been issued. Ronald was arrested at his office. $750,000 bail. Lauren at the house. $1 million bail due to family wealth and flight risk. The news showed both of them being led away in handcuffs. My son's face on television. Because of me. Because I had refused to stay silent. I told myself I had done the right thing. I kept hoping I would believe it. 1 week after the arrests, Patricia called with news that made my stomach turn. Lauren's attorney reached out to Jennifer. She wants to cooperate, testify against Ronald in exchange for a reduced sentence. I sat down at my kitchen table. What's she saying? That it was all Ronald's idea, that she just helped execute his plan, that he pressured her into it, used her family connections, manipulated her into participating. Do they believe her? No, because she made a mistake. She provided emails to prove Ronald initiated the scheme. Messages from 2018 showing he planned this before they even got married. She thought those emails would save her. Patricia's voice got harder. But those same emails also show her pushing to increase the amounts, suggesting the forged signature approach, recruiting Marcus Webb, and the texts we already had show her racial calculations clearly. She read one aloud. "Your dad's generation doesn't question white authority, especially when it comes from someone who looks like me. We can use that. Keep the documentation clean and he'll never push back." So what happens now? The DA is offering a very limited cooperation deal. She testifies truthfully about everything, including her own role, and she gets a modest reduction. Maybe 2 or 3 years off whatever sentence she'd otherwise get, but she's not walking away from this. Over the next few days, Lauren's defense attorney tried a different angle. He gave interviews suggesting Lauren had been manipulated by Ronald, that as a white woman from a sheltered background, she had been drawn into schemes by a more experienced businessman. Patricia's response was immediate and public. She released a statement with supporting documents. The evidence shows Lauren Jefferson targeted elderly victims years before meeting Ronald Jefferson. The Houston case from 2012 establishes her pattern of predatory behavior. The emails and texts demonstrate equal partnership in this fraud with clear evidence of racial exploitation and calculated abuse of generational trauma. Any attempt to portray her as a naive victim is contradicted by her own written words and established history. The racial dynamics got uglier in the media. Some people defended Lauren. Others called out the obvious attempt to use racial stereotypes about predatory black men and innocent white women. I stayed out of it. Let Patricia and Jennifer handle the narrative. But I kept that text message Lauren wrote saved on my phone. Your dad's generation doesn't question white authority. She had been wrong about that, dead wrong. The story exploded beyond Dallas. The Dallas Morning News ran it as front-page news 3 days in a row. By the end of the week, CNN picked it up for a segment on their evening broadcast, Elder Abuse in Affluent Families, The Hidden Crisis. NPR dedicated a 20-minute piece to the case focusing specifically on the racial dynamics, how generational trauma and learned silence made elderly Black Americans particularly vulnerable to exploitation, how assumptions about deference to white authority created opportunities for predators. Every major outlet wanted an interview. I declined all of them except one. Marcus Thompson was a reporter for a local Black newspaper. He had covered my story from the beginning with care and respect. I agreed to sit down with him. This is not just my story, I told him. This is happening everywhere, to parents of every background. Check your parents' finances. Ask to see the paperwork. Do not let shame or respect for family keep you silent. Within a week, elder abuse hotlines reported a 300% increase in calls. My blog post had grown to 5,000 comments. Someone had translated it into Spanish. The story was spreading. People were finding their voices. The trial began on a humid Monday morning in June. The courthouse was packed. Media filled the back rows. Elderly people I had never met came to watch. Members from the support group that had formed online. Jury selection had taken 3 days. The final 12 sat in the box. 8 Black jurors, 2 Latino, 1 Asian, 1 white, a mix of ages and backgrounds. People who looked like they understood what it meant to work hard and have someone take it from you. Jennifer Santos stood for the prosecution's opening statement. She wore a gray suit and spoke in a clear, strong voice. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about a son who used his father's name as a tool to commit theft, a tool to defraud the federal government, a tool to build a false reputation while his 76-year-old father worked 80 hours a week just to survive. She walked to the evidence table, held up the photo of the forged signature. You will see this signature, Edward Jefferson's name written by someone else. You will see bank surveillance showing the defendants creating false documents while Edward Jefferson was miles away working a shift. You will see checks for $10,000 a month, $480,000 total going not to Edward Jefferson, but to a company controlled by the defendants. She held up a printed email. And you will see this email from Lauren Jefferson to Ronald Jefferson that says your dad is finally useful. Keep the story consistent. This is theft, plain and simple. Ronald's attorney stood next. Older white man in an expensive suit, he spoke about complicated financial arrangements, about an elderly father who might be confused about structures he did not fully understand, about good intentions and misunderstandings blown out of proportion. My client tried to help his father. The execution may have been imperfect, but the intent was benign. Lauren's attorney was younger. She took a different approach. My client relied on her husband, trusted the professionals he hired. She believed everything was legal and proper. She is as much a victim of Ronald's schemes as anyone. Both defense strategies were clear. Make me look confused. Make Ronald look incompetent. Make Lauren look innocent. None of it was true, and the jury was about to see why. Day 1 and 2, the paper trail. The forensic accountant was a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen. She had analyzed financial crimes for the FBI for 15 years before going into private consulting. She walked the jury through every dollar with surgical precision. Over 48 months, checks totaling $480,000 were written. $10,000 monthly from Jefferson Development Company to L. Bennett Holdings, LLC. She displayed charts on the screens mounted throughout the courtroom, clean lines showing money flowing in only one direction, away from Ronald's business accounts, into Lauren's control. Of that $480,000, approximately $320,000 was transferred to personal accounts in Lauren Jefferson's name. The remaining $160,000 was withdrawn as cash or used for luxury purchases documented in credit card statements. She clicked through receipts. $40,000 for a 2-week trip to Italy, $25,000 in jewelry from Tiffany & Co., $15,000 at a luxury spa resort in Scottsdale, $10,000 at a wine auction in Napa Valley. How much of this money reached Edward Jefferson? Jennifer asked. $0, doctor. Chen showed my bank statements on the screen. Month after month. Never more than $500, often less than $300. Grocery purchases at discount stores, utility payments, Rent. Nothing discretionary. No vacations. No jewelry. No spa treatments. This is a man who worked 80 hours a week at 76 years old. His statements show the financial reality of someone surviving, not someone receiving $10,000 monthly. Day 3. The video evidence. The bank vice president testified nervously, kept adjusting his tie, avoided looking at the defense table. Then the prosecution played the surveillance video. The courtroom went silent. March 15, 2019, 2:47 p.m. Lauren walks into the Bank of America branch with a man later identified as Marcus Webb. They are escorted to a private signing room used for notarized documents. 12 minutes later, they exit. Lauren carries a folder. Jennifer paused the video. "Do you see Edward Jefferson anywhere in this footage?" "No." "Who is the woman?" "That's Lauren Jefferson. I recognized her from photos provided by investigators." Then my warehouse time card appeared on the screen. Same date, same time. Clocked in at 2:30 p.m. Address showed the warehouse was 15 miles from that bank branch. A gasp went through the courtroom. 3 jurors leaned forward. 1 shook her head slowly. Day 4. Rosa's testimony. Rosa wore a simple navy dress and kept her hands folded in her lap. She spoke quietly, but every word carried weight. "I worked for Mr. Ronald and Mrs. Lauren for 3 years. I cleaned their home, I cooked their meals, and I heard things I was not supposed to hear." "What things?" "Arguments. Mrs. Lauren telling Mr. Ronald to keep his father quiet until after tax season. Mr. Ronald asking what if his father asks questions about the money." Rosa took a breath. Her voice steadied. "And Mrs. Lauren said old black men don't make waves. She said society taught them not to question white people in authority. She said, as long as Mr. Edward stays quiet, they are safe." The courtroom erupted. Whispers became voices. The judge hammered his gavel 3 times. 2 of the black jurors' faces changed, hardened. 1 wrote something in her notepad with enough force that I could see the pen pressing hard. "Did you document this conversation?" "Yes, I went home that night and wrote it in my diary. The date was April 7th, 2 years ago. I still have the diary." She produced a small notebook with a worn cover. The prosecutor entered it into evidence. Defense counsel tried to break her on cross-examination. Suggested she misheard. Suggested her English was not good enough to understand complex conversations. Suggested she held a grudge against her employers. Rosa stayed steady through all of it. "My English is fine. I understood exactly what she said. And I wrote it down the same night because it bothered me." Day 5. The pattern. Lawrence Crawford took the stand. 70 years old. Retired teacher, gray hair neatly trimmed. He wore a suit that looked like he had owned it for decades. He told his story. The restaurant. Lauren approaching him in 2012 as a financial consultant. Her credentials that seemed impressive. The $95,000 that disappeared into a shell company. "Why didn't you report it at the time?" Jennifer asked. Lawrence's voice was quiet but clear. "Because I was ashamed. I'm an old black man who taught business classes for 30 years, and a young white woman with a smile and fancy words took everything I had saved. I thought people would say I should have known better, that I was stupid, that I deserved it. So I stayed silent." What changed? "I saw Mr. Jefferson's story and realized shame is exactly what lets people like her keep doing this. Silence protects the predator, not the victim." The pattern was established. Lauren had targeted vulnerable elderly victims before. This was not a one-time mistake. This was who she was. When they called my name, I stood slowly. My legs felt unsteady, but I made it to the witness stand, placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Jennifer Santos approached with a gentle expression. "Mr. Jefferson, please tell the jury how old you are." "I'm 76 years old. How many hours a week do you work?" 80 hours, 40 hours as a night security guard, 30 hours cleaning warehouse floors, 10 hours at dollar store. At 76 years old, why do you work 80 hours a week? "Because I have to eat. I have to pay rent. I have to keep the lights on. I don't have a choice." She showed my bank statements on the screen, month after month, never more than $400. The jury could see every grocery store purchase, every utility payment, Every tank of gas. Tell the jury about the Christmas party where your son made his announcement. I described that night. The borrowed suit, standing in a room full of wealthy people. Ronald's voice saying he gave me $10,000 a month. The applause. Lauren's eyes watching me from across the room like I was a problem she needed to contain. Then Jennifer asked the question I had been dreading. Mr. Jefferson, do you love your son? My throat closed. I looked at Ronald sitting at the defense table. He was crying. I took a long breath. I do. The words came out rough. Tears ran down my face. I raised him alone after his mother died of cancer when he was 8 years old. I worked double shifts at the post office, took weekend jobs, missed his school plays and basketball games because I was working just to keep us fed and housed. I made sure he could go to college. I was so proud when he graduated. My voice broke. He promised me. When he made it, he would take care of me. He said I would never have to work myself into the ground again. Then why are you here? I wiped my eyes, looked at the jury. Because love does not mean accepting theft. Love does not mean letting someone use your name to commit crimes. He used my name like it was a tool, like I did not matter, like I was invisible, and I refused to be invisible anymore. 3 jurors were crying openly. 2 others had their jaws set tight. Ronald's attorney stood for cross-examination, tried to suggest I was confused, that at my age financial arrangements could be hard to understand, that maybe I had signed documents I did not remember signing. Mr. Jefferson, isn't it possible you simply forgot? I looked directly at him. Sir, I might forget where I parked my car. I might forget what I ate for breakfast. I do not forget 4 years of bank statements showing I never received a single penny. I do not forget working 80 hours a week at 76 years old while my son lived in a mansion and told people he supported me. But complicated financial structures are not that complicated. Money either reaches me or it does not. My bank account tells the truth every month, $0 from my son. The attorney tried a few more angles. Nothing stuck. The evidence was too clear, the contrast too stark. When I stepped down, my hands were shaking, but I had told the truth. All of it. I had been invisible for too long. Not anymore. Lauren took the stand as part of her limited cooperation agreement. She wore a conservative navy suit and minimal jewelry. Her hair was pulled back. She looked like she was trying to appear humble. Jennifer Santos walked her through the basic facts. Lauren admitted receiving the checks, admitted helping set up Bennett Holdings, admitted knowing the money never reached me, but she tried to paint herself as a secondary player, a wife who trusted her husband. Ronald explained it as tax planning. He said his father had agreed to the arrangement for estate purposes. He said it was common in wealthy families. I relied on his expertise. You never questioned it. I trusted my husband. He's a successful businessman. I assumed he knew what he was doing. Jennifer nodded slowly. Let Lauren build her story. Let the jury see her try to shift all blame to Ronald. Then she moved in for the kill. Mrs. Jefferson, let me show you an email you sent to a college friend in 2017. The email appeared on the courtroom screens. Lauren's face went pale. Please read it for the jury. Lauren's voice was barely a whisper. This is genius. Old man works for minimum wage while we claim $120,000 a year in deductions. He'll never check the paperwork. My dad always said black folks from that generation don't question white authority figures. We're completely safe. The courtroom exploded. Voices overlapped. Someone in the gallery said, "Oh my God," loud enough for everyone to hear. The judge hammered his gavel hard. Order, I will have order in this courtroom. Jennifer did not wait for silence to fully return. Here's another email. This one to your mother. Please read it. Ronald's father is finally useful for something, financing our lifestyle while he lives in poverty. The irony is actually delicious. 2 jurors looked disgusted. One shook his head slowly. An older black woman in the jury box folded her arms across her chest. One more. Text message to Ronald, March 2019. Your exact words. Lauren closed her eyes. Get the signature done this week. Use Marcus. The old man won't know the difference between a real notary and a fake one. Even Lauren's own attorney looked shocked. These specific emails had not been in the discovery file he had reviewed. Jennifer had held them back strategically. Does that sound like someone who was innocently trusting her husband, Mrs. Jefferson? Those were taken out of context. I was venting. I didn't mean. You targeted elderly victims before you ever met Ronald Jefferson. Lawrence Crawford testified about Houston. We have emails showing you planned to defraud him months before your husband appeared in your life. You didn't follow Ronald's lead. You taught him how to do this. Lauren started crying, but it was too late. The jury had seen exactly who she was, a predator who had found the perfect partner in my son. Her credibility was destroyed. Ronald had no choice but to testify after Lauren's testimony destroyed any chance of a unified defense strategy. His attorney tried to salvage what was left, but the damage was catastrophic. Mr. Jefferson, walk us through your thinking when you established this financial arrangement. Ronald's voice was hoarse. I was trying to help my father long term. Create a structure that would benefit him in the future, provide security for his later years. What structure specifically? A trust arrangement, financial planning for his benefit. Jennifer Santos stood for cross-examination. Her expression was neutral, but her questions were surgical. What trust? Show me one document your father signed establishing this trust. Ronald looked at his lawyer. No help came. The paperwork was, for 4 years you were in the process of getting his signature for 4 years while taking $480,000 in tax deductions. Silence. Jennifer's voice got quieter, more dangerous. Let me ask you something simple. Do you love your father? Yes, of course I love him. When was the last time you visited his apartment? Ronald looked down. His hands fidgeted with a pen on the table. Long silence. Mr. Jefferson, when was the last time you visited your father's apartment? It had been maybe 2 years. 2 years. Did you know he works 80 hours a week? I knew he worked. Did you know he eats beans from a can because he cannot afford better food? Ronald's voice cracked. I didn't. Did you know his car heater has been broken for 2 winters, that he drives to work in freezing temperatures? Tears started running down Ronald's face. He could not speak. Did you think he would never find out? Did you count on what your wife said? That old black men don't make waves, that society taught them not to question authority? Ronald broke completely, sobbing. He turned toward where I sat in the gallery. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I love you. I'm so sorry. I looked away, could not meet his eyes. Some apologies come too late. Some damage cannot be fixed with tears. The judge called a recess. They led Ronald out, still crying. My son. Broken. Because of choices he made. Because of what he did to me. I told myself this was justice. I kept hoping the weight in my chest would lift. It did not. Jennifer Santos stood for the final time. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about more than stolen money. They stole Edward Jefferson's dignity. They stole his identity. They stole his truth and used it to build a lie that lasted 4 years. She walked to the evidence table, picked up the photo of the forged signature. This is not a mistake. This is not a misunderstanding. This is a crime. A deliberate, calculated crime that required planning, coordination, and absolute disregard for Edward Jefferson's humanity. She pointed to the blown-up email on the screen. Your dad is finally useful. They used racial assumptions. They counted on an elderly black man staying silent because society had taught him not to question white authority. They turned his sacrifice, his years of raising a son alone, working double shifts to pay for college, into their profit machine. She looked at each juror. Edward Jefferson worked 80 hours a week at 76 years old while they vacationed in Europe on his name. He ate beans from a can while they bought $25,000 necklaces. He froze in a car with broken heat while they saved thousands on taxes. Find them guilty. All counts. Both defendants. Ronald's attorney stood next. His closing was weak. Talked about poor choices made under the influence of a manipulative spouse. About good intentions gone wrong. About a son who lost his way but never meant real harm. The jury looked unconvinced. Lauren's attorney took a different approach, threw Ronald completely under the bus. My client made terrible decisions. She is guilty of participating, but the evidence is clear. Ronald Jefferson initiated this scheme. He used his own father. He brought Lauren into his fraud. Yes, she helped. Yes, she should be punished. But Ronald is the architect of this betrayal. He is guiltier. It was a desperate strategy. An attempt to save Lauren by destroying Ronald entirely. The jury deliberated for 7 hours. I sat in a conference room with George and Patricia, drank coffee that tasted like cardboard, watched the clock, waited. 7 hours to decide if my testimony, my evidence, my willingness to destroy my relationship with my son had been enough. The call came at 4:30. The jury had reached a verdict. We filed back into the courtroom. My heart hammered so hard I thought everyone could hear it. George sat beside me, Patricia on the other side. Rosa was in the gallery. So was Lawrence Crawford. So were a dozen people from the support group who had driven hours to be there. The jury entered. No one looked at the defense table. That was a sign. A bad sign for Ronald and Lauren. A good sign for justice. The judge spoke. Has the jury reached a verdict? The four persons stood. An older black woman who had taken careful notes throughout the trial, who had cried when I testified. We have, Your Honor. On the count of elder financial abuse, how do you find the defendant, Ronald Jefferson? Guilty. On the count of federal tax fraud, guilty. On the count of identity theft, guilty. On the count of wire fraud, guilty. On the count of conspiracy, guilty. The same for Lauren. Guilty on every count. The courtroom stayed silent. No cheering, no celebration, just the weight of those words settling over everyone like heavy snow. I sat there with tears running down my face, not tears of joy, tears of grief for what we had lost, for the relationship that could never be repaired, for the son I had raised who had become someone I did not recognize. George squeezed my shoulder. Across the aisle, Rosa wiped her eyes. Ronald turned in his seat, looked at me. His face was destroyed. He mouthed the words, "I'm sorry." I looked away. Some apologies cannot fix what has been broken. The judge set sentencing for 6 weeks out. The bailiff led Ronald and Lauren away in handcuffs. I walked out of that courtroom feeling like I had won and lost everything at the same time. Justice had been served. But my son was gone. The 6 weeks between verdict and sentencing felt longer than the entire trial. My mailbox filled with letters, not dozens, hundreds. Over 800 letters from all 50 states. Elderly people who had been exploited by their own children. Adult children who discovered their parents were being abused. Social workers. Attorneys. People who said my story gave them courage to speak up. One letter came from the Texas state legislature. They were holding hearings on elder abuse prevention laws. Would I be willing to testify before the committee? I sat in that committee room 2 weeks later facing representatives and senators. Told my story again. The 80-hour weeks. The forged signature. The assumption that I would stay silent because of my age and my race. How many other elderly Texans are living this right now? One senator asked. How many are too afraid or too ashamed to report? Thousands, I said. Maybe more. We were taught to protect our children, to not air family business publicly, to not make waves. That teaching protects the wrong people. Within a month, a bill was introduced. The Edward Jefferson Elder Protection Act. Stronger criminal penalties for financial abuse of elderly parents. Required training for bank employees to recognize signs of exploitation. Mandatory reporting protocols when suspicious activity involving elderly account holders is detected. The Dallas Morning News ran the story, 76-year-old security guard's case sparks statewide reform. I kept that article. Not because I wanted fame, because it proved speaking up mattered. That silence only protects predators. Other victims started coming forward. A woman in San Antonio whose daughter had drained her retirement. A man in Austin whose son claimed him as a dependent while he lived in his car. Each story added weight to the movement. This was bigger than me now. This was about changing a system. Sentencing day arrived with clear skies and heavy air. The courtroom was packed. Media filled the back rows. Victims from other cases who had found courage through mine. People who had followed every day of the trial. The judge asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. I stood with a paper in my shaking hands. Your Honor, my name is Edward Monroe Jefferson. I am 76 years old. I worked as a postal carrier for 35 years. When I retired, I thought I had earned rest. My voice steadied as I continued. Instead, I worked 80 hours a week across 3 jobs because I had to survive. Security guard, warehouse cleaner, store cashier at 76. Because my son told the world he gave me $10,000 every month, but I never saw one penny. I looked at Ronald sitting at the defense table. He was crying. He used my name, my black name, knowing I had been taught my whole life not to make waves, not to question authority, especially white authority. His wife assumed an old black man would not fight back, that I would stay quiet out of shame or fear or respect for family. They were wrong. My voice got stronger. I do not want revenge, Your Honor. I want them to understand that dignity is not something you buy with stolen money, that a father's love is not permission to commit crimes, that my generation's silence was survival, not permission. I turned slightly toward the gallery. And I want every parent watching this to hear me. Check the paperwork. Ask to see the bank statements. Do not let shame keep you silent. Do not let respect for your children become a weapon they use against you. Your dignity matters more than keeping peace. A reporter in the back row was crying. Several people in the gallery nodded. I raised my son alone. I gave him everything. He promised to take care of me. Instead, he used my name like a tool, like I did not matter, like I was invisible. I looked at the judge. I am not invisible anymore, and neither are the thousands of other elderly parents living this nightmare right now. Make the sentence strong enough that people know this will not be tolerated, strong enough that the next son or daughter thinks twice. The courtroom was completely silent when I sat down. The judge thanked me. Her voice was tight with emotion. The judge took a long moment before speaking. When she did, her voice carried the weight of every word. I have presided over many cases in my career. This one stands apart for its particular cruelty. You did not just commit fraud. You weaponized your father's love. You exploited racial dynamics and generational trauma. You turned his sacrifice into your profit while he ate beans from a can. She looked at Ronald. Mr. Ronald Jefferson, you are sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. You will pay $480,000 in restitution to your father. Upon release, you will serve 5 years supervised probation. You are permanently banned from any position handling others' finances. Your real estate license is revoked. Ronald's head dropped. The judge turned to Lauren. Mrs. Lauren Jefferson, your sentence is longer because the evidence shows a pattern of predatory behavior. You targeted vulnerable victims years before you ever met your husband. You brought expertise in fraud to this marriage. You wrote emails calling an elderly man finally useful. You calculated how to exploit racial and generational dynamics for profit. You are sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. You will pay $575,000 in restitution, including damages to Mr. Crawford in Houston. You are banned for life from any financial services or fiduciary position. Lauren's face remained cold, angry, no remorse visible. Do either of you wish to address the court? Ronald stood, his voice broke. Dad, I love you. I am so sorry. I will spend every day for the rest of my life trying to become the man you deserved as a son, the man Mom would have wanted me to be. I am so sorry. I sat still, did not respond, did not look at him. Lauren remained silent. The bailiff led them both away. Ronald looked back one more time, tears streaming down his face. I looked down at my hands. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded me. I gave one statement. Justice was served today, but I want every family watching to understand something. This could have been prevented if I had checked the paperwork years ago, if I had asked questions. If I had not stayed silent out of respect or shame, do not make my mistake. Protect yourself. That night, alone in my apartment, I cried for the first time since the verdict, not for what I had gained, for what I had lost. The civil case settled 3 months later. Ronald and Lauren's assets were liquidated. The house, the cars, investment accounts, everything. I received $615,000, restitution plus damages plus legal fees recovered. It was more money than I had ever seen in my life. It did not make me rich. It made me stable. I paid off $42,000 in accumulated debts, medical bills, credit cards I had used for groceries when my bank account hit zero. I bought a reliable car for $18,000. Nothing fancy. A Honda Accord that started every time and had heat that worked. I moved to a better apartment. $1,400 a month, 2 bedrooms, safe neighborhood, working appliances, no cockroaches. I put $100,000 in a medical fund. At 77, health costs were only going to increase. The rest went into savings. Real retirement. Finally, I donated $75,000 to an elder abuse prevention nonprofit. They used it to create a legal fund for victims who could not afford attorneys. The money helped. but it did not heal what had been broken. Some things cannot be bought back. 1 year after sentencing, I was 77 years old, living in my safe apartment with working heat and no leaks. I had quit the security job and the warehouse, kept the dollar store part-time, 15 hours a week, enough to stay connected to people without destroying my body. The rest of my time went to something that mattered more than any paycheck. I spoke at senior centers twice a month, taught financial literacy classes at 3 different Black churches, ran a support group for elderly abuse victims every Thursday night. My message was always the same. Our generation was taught not to question, not to make noise, not to embarrass our children. We were taught that respect meant silence, that love meant trust without verification. I would look around the room at faces that understood, faces that carried the same scars. That silence protects the wrong people. That trust without paperwork is how predators operate. Your dignity matters more than keeping peace. Check the paper. Ask for bank statements. It is not disrespectful. It is self-protection. Over the year, I helped 35 families identify and report financial abuse, walked them through the process, connected them with attorneys, sat with them when they had to face their own children in court. Each case broke my heart a little. Each case also proved the fight was worth it. The media attention faded, but the work continued. I was interviewed for AARP magazine, appeared on an NPR podcast about elder abuse, featured as a community hero on the local news. But the real impact happened in church basements and community centers, in quiet conversations with elderly people who thought they were alone, who thought no one would believe them, who thought it was their fault. It is not your fault, I told them every time. You trusted someone you loved. That is not a crime. What they did is the crime. Rosa came to some of my talks, shared her story about finding the courage to speak up even when her job was at risk. She worked for Patricia's law firm now, helping other victims navigate the system. Denise helped me organize the support groups, said it reminded her why she had gone into accounting in the first place, to help people understand their money. We built something good from something broken. 14 months after sentencing, a letter arrived from Ronald, federal prison in Louisiana. The envelope was thin, the handwriting shaky. I almost threw it away without opening it, sat with it on my kitchen table for an hour. Finally opened it. Dad, I am in therapy 3 times a week, individual and group. I am finally beginning to understand what I did. Not just the legal crimes, the human betrayal. I was ashamed of growing up poor, ashamed of our neighborhood, ashamed of your jobs. When I met Lauren's family with their old money and country club memberships, I wanted to impress them. I wanted to prove I belonged in their world. So I erased where I came from, erased you, turned you into a story that made me look good instead of the man who sacrificed everything. Lauren taught me to see you as useful instead of human. I am ashamed I listened. I am ashamed I let her racism become my racism. You raised me better than that. Mom would be devastated. The worst part is, I knew what I was doing. Every check I signed to Bennett Holdings, every tax return I filed, every party where I lied about supporting you, I knew. And I did it anyway. I understand if you never forgive me. I understand if you never want to see me again. But I am trying to change. I teach financial literacy to other inmates. I volunteer in the prison library. I am working on my soul. Can we talk? Letters, phone calls, anything. I understand if not. I just want you to know I see you now, really see you. And I am so sorry it took prison to open my eyes. Your son Ronald, I read it 3 times, cried through the second reading. Then I wrote back, Ronald, I forgive you. But I do not forget. Forgiveness does not erase what happened. It just means I am not carrying your guilt anymore. I will visit you when you have served 5 years, not before. Use this time to become the man I raised you to be, the man your mother would be proud of. Work with other inmates, help them avoid your mistakes, and never contact Lauren again. She brought poison into your life. Keep her out. Dad. I never responded to Lauren's letters. She sent 4. I burned them all unread. Some people do not deserve your words. 2 years after the trial, a local filmmaker named Marcus Williams approached me. He wanted to make a short documentary about my case, about elder abuse, about speaking up. I was hesitant at first, but he convinced me when he said he wanted to interview other victims too. Make it bigger than just my story. The documentary was called The Invisible Father. 28 minutes. Featured interviews with me, Rosa Patricia Lawrence Crawford from Houston, and 3 other elderly victims who had come forward after seeing my case. It premiered at the Dallas Film Festival, won Best Short Documentary. Then PBS picked it up for national broadcast. The impact was immediate. Within 6 months, Texas passed the Edward Jefferson Elder Protection Act. Stronger criminal penalties for financial abuse of elderly parents. Required training for bank employees to recognize signs of exploitation. Mandatory reporting protocols when suspicious activity is detected involving elderly account holders. The IRS announced increased scrutiny of dependent claims. If you claim an elderly parent, be prepared to show proof. Real proof. Not just paperwork you created yourself. Banks across Texas implemented new procedures. If someone tries to set up automatic transfers from an account with an elderly person's name, that person gets contacted directly, not through a family member. Directly. Other states started looking at similar legislation: California, Florida, New York. My case became a reference point in legislative hearings across the country. I traveled to 3 state capitals to testify, told my story each time, watched lawmakers take notes, watched them realize this was not just a Texas problem, this was everywhere. The documentary is now used in social work programs, in law schools, in banking industry training, my face, my story, my pain, teaching people to recognize what I had lived through. If it saves even one elderly parent from what I experienced, it was worth it. The support group started small, just me and 4 other people in a church basement, folding chairs, bad coffee, stories that made us cry. By the 2nd year, we had 40 regular attendees, mostly Black and Latino elderly, people who had been taught that family business stays private, that you do not embarrass your children, that silence is respect. We called it Second Wind Advocacy, meeting every Thursday at 6. I opened each meeting the same way. My name is Edward Jefferson. My son stole my identity and used my name to commit tax fraud for 4 years while I worked 80 hours a week. I stayed silent out of respect. That silence almost destroyed me. Then others would share. A 72-year-old woman whose daughter-in-law controlled all her accounts. A 68-year-old man whose son claimed him as a dependent while he lived on Social Security. A 75-year-old grandmother whose grandson had taken out credit cards in her name. We taught each other how to check credit reports, how to request bank statements, how to document everything, how to find attorneys who would take elder abuse cases. More importantly, we taught each other that it was not our fault, that trusting your children is not a character flaw, that love does not require accepting theft. 6 months into the group, a woman named Dorothy joined, 72, quiet, scared. Her daughter-in-law had been draining her savings for 3 years. She thought she was the only one. "You are not alone," I told her. "Here is what we do." We rallied around her, connected her with Patricia's law firm, helped her document everything, supported her through the police report, sat with her in court. 6 months later, her daughter-in-law was convicted. Dorothy got her money back. At the next meeting, she stood up. "You all saved my life." The group mattered more than any documentary or legislation. We were saving each other. Thanksgiving of the 3rd year, I hosted dinner in my apartment. Not big enough for a crowd, but I made it work. George Patterson and his wife brought sweet potato pie. Patricia Holmes brought her partner and green bean casserole. Rosa came with her daughter, brought tamales. Denise brought her famous mac and cheese. Lawrence Crawford flew in from Houston with his wife, brought pecan pie. 3 members from the support group came. Dorothy, whose case we had helped win. An elderly man rebuilding his credit after his daughter destroyed it. A grandmother who had finally gotten her grandson arrested for identity theft. We crowded around my small table and a folding table borrowed from the church. Mismatched chairs, paper napkins, nothing fancy. But it was family. Not the family I was born with. The family I had chosen. The family that had chosen me. George raised his glass of sweet tea. To those who stood when standing was hard. Everyone raised their glasses. Patricia added, "To Edward, who taught us that silence protects the wrong people." Rosa spoke next, her voice soft. "To finding our voices." We went around the table. Each person shared what they were grateful for. When it came to me, I looked at their faces, these people who had stood with me, who had believed me, who had helped me transform pain into purpose. I am grateful for truth. It cost me a son, but it gave me my name back. And it gave me all of you. We ate until we could not move, laughed until our sides hurt, told stories until the sun went down. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere, not because of blood, because of choice. 3 years after the trial, I am 79 years old. I walk slower now. My knees complain more, but I am still here. Still working 15 hours a week at dollar store, still running the support group, still speaking at churches and community centers. One afternoon, I walk through downtown Dallas, past the building where Ronald's office used to be. Someone else's name on the door now. The empire he built is gone, sold to pay restitution and legal fees. I do not feel satisfaction seeing it empty. I feel sadness for what could have been. I head to dollar store for my shift. A young man is working the register next to mine. 18 years old, black kid with big dreams. Reminds me of Ronald at that age. During our break, he tells me he saw my documentary in his high school social studies class. "Mr. Jefferson, you are kind of famous. My teacher said you changed laws." I smile. "Not famous, son, just visible." He looks confused. For a long time, I was invisible. I worked 3 jobs and nobody saw me. My own son used my name but did not see me as a person. It took everything I had to become visible again. My grandma says you helped her. She was having problems with my uncle. You told her to check the papers. She found out he was stealing from her. Something warm spreads through my chest. Is she okay now? Yeah, she got her money back, and my uncle is in jail. She says you saved her life. At the end of my shift, I stock the shelves one more time. My back aches, but my hands are steady. A life well lived is not measured in money. It is measured in the people you help become visible too. Listen close now. I learned 3 truths at 76 years old. First, silence protects the wrong people. Our generation was taught to keep quiet, especially us black folks. That silence is a cage. Break it. Second, love and accountability are not enemies. I loved my son and still do. But I could not let love make me invisible. You can hold both. Third, your dignity is not negotiable. Not for family, not for peace, not for anything. The moment you trade your truth for someone else's comfort, you have given away the only thing that is truly yours. Check the paper. Ask the questions. And remember, being 76 does not mean being powerless. Sometimes it means you have finally learned when to fight. Before you go do something right now, call an elderly parent or grandparent. Ask to see their bank statements. Ask who handles their money. Do not wait until it is too late. If you have ever stood up to family who underestimated your worth, share your story in the comments. Your voice might save someone. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button right now. Subscribe if you believe dignity matters more than keeping peace. Hit that notification bell so you never miss stories about standing up for what is right. Together we can break the silence and make sure no other parent works 80 hours a week at 76 while their children lie. Let us protect those who protected us.